Okay, everyone. Welcome to the webinar portion of our meeting. The speaker is Greg Batista. He is an engineer. His clients include the Seminole Tribe of Florida and many boards and HOAs. He's a licensed structural engineer since 1992 and 1998 in Florida. He's a licensed general contractor since 1992 and 1998 in Florida also. At Greg Batista and Associates. He specializes in repairs to existing buildings, particularly in concrete, structural engineering and concrete repairs, and waterproofing. And with that, I'm going to make him the host of the meeting.
Okay, let me know.
And you are the host. Take it away, Mr. Batista. It is your meeting.
Just share my screen here on this PowerPoint presentation that I did. Hopefully you guys can still see me. Let's see how this works here. All right, let me put it on. Okay, can everybody see the screen?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Great.
Yes.
Actually, I've known Alex for a very long time. When I first started doing, I was in the investment club in the early '90s with Joe Bowman and all the co-hosted characters there. So I'm sort of in a way back home. My wife, or my ex-wife now, we used to own a real estate company. She was the broker, and I was the contractor and engineer. We had everything pretty much in house. So it's been a long time, and I'm starting to get back in the game because, and I'm saying this before I start this whole thing, I received a call from a very good friend of mine that we've been doing business throughout the year. The guy's a billionaire with a B. He calls me up and says, Greg, I have all this money in the bank. What do I do with it? You know, I want to go into Bitcoin. I said, no, don't do anything. It's real estate. You need to get into real estate. I know the market is hot, but if you're looking long-term, if you're looking to leave money to your kids, your grandkids, real estate is the way to go. And he knew that, he knows me from back in my real estate days and my construction and all that. So he's like, Greg, I have all this, stack of cash. What do we do? So I said, let's buy stuff. So we just created a company just a month ago, and I'm out there trying to buy real estate. We bought an office building. We closed on it a few weeks ago, but it takes up a lot of my time. But I want to. It's good that I get back in touch with everybody and hook up with Sandra, who knows a lot of people and can hook up with a lot of people. So I've been out of the game for a long time, and I want to start getting back into this. So that being said, let's start with what I have here. This is a webinar that I created. So let's just, how much time do I have? I can't hear you.
The meeting officially ends at 1, but unofficially it can go longer.
Okay, so I'll try to be quick and go through it. Now, let's just get to it. So it's called Averting Disaster at Your Building. This is just a copy of the webinar that we did last night, where Andy Fuchsa, he's more of an insurance guy, so he's not going to be talking here, but we're going to go more of the bricks and mortar part of the presentation. So moving on. Okay, introduction to the webinar. Who is this webinar for? This is for residents, board members, people who are looking to purchase, property managers, and owners of commercial property. Basically, people that don't have a technical background, such as those people that this is not designed for. This is not designed for, design professionals, general contractors, building inspectors, and other people with a technical background. Like I said, after the Surfside mishap happened, I literally got hundreds of phone calls from people saying, is my building gonna fall? What's gonna happen? I see a crack. What's going on here? And I decided to make this webinar to have people understand that there is a process, that there's an infrastructure there in place to help people, and there are professionals out there that can help you. Everybody was freaking out, just freaking out. Like Alex was before. He's saying he was on the third story of the building, and the building was going to fall down. But yes, it's not strange, that it's everybody. This is in people's minds now. So I have recorded this meeting, the whole thing with the insurance thing. It lasts about an hour and a quarter. Whoever wants me to send them a link to the actual webinar can go ahead and email me. My website is down on the bottom right, askgbatista.com. You get all my information, and I'll be happy to send you a link so you can share this with a lot of people. Because after I did the webinar, everybody was like, we need to get this because this needs to go out to a lot of people. Okay, moving on. Introduction to the webinar, asking questions in chat. We had hundreds of people on the webinar, and they asked a lot of good questions, but right now this is only a few people. So if you have a question, you can feel free to unmute yourself and go ahead and ask the question, or we can wait till the end and have a Q&A session. As a matter of fact, you know what? Let's wait till the end, jot your questions down, and when I get to the Q&A, we can just go ahead and answer the questions. Why is this topic important? Well, we owe it to those people who died, and not only to the people who died in Surfside, but throughout history. It's been a constant battle of time and making mistakes. Even the pyramids. It's been documented that the people that were making the pyramids sometimes made it at a certain angle and it went down. So for thousands of years, this kind of thing has been happening. People getting hurt. Things crumbling to the ground. So it's a constant process, and it's very important that we learn, because at the end of the day, the Egyptians learned that it had to be at a perfect angle, that you see those pyramids that you see over in Giza right now that they've been there for 2,000-3,000 years. And at the end of the day, also we're talking that this is important because of safety. Nobody in the United States of America at this day should be able to should have to walk into a building and be scared that their building's going to fall, that there's something that their life is in danger. We have a whole set of infrastructure out there with inspectors and all the whole 9 yards to not have to have people going in there and asking themselves, is my building going to fall? Moving on, what will we cover? The basics. Why is the building so complicated? You guys that are in this industry in one way or another know more than the average layperson that would have been watching this webinar, is that buildings are complicated. They're just like the human body. They have electrical systems, plumbing systems, the skin of the building, and it has to be maintained as such. When something ails you, you go to the doctor, you have typical checkups. Buildings are not, as you guys know already, are not just hunks of concrete out there. They're living and breathing, and they should be treated as such. So should I be worried about my building? Yes and no. On the yes part, of course, is because of its safety. You should be concerned. If you live in a place and you have a board, you should be concerned about your building. You should go to those meetings. You should be active, at least in knowing what's going on with your buildings, and it should be painted, should be changing the air conditioning, if there's leaks, if there's cracks, and things of that sort. But should it get to the point where you're actually concerned that the building's going to fall on you? Well, no, you shouldn't be worried to that aspect and be freaking out, because there are, like I said, there are professionals out there. There's building officials, there's inspectors, there are architects, engineers, there's people that work on the maintenance of the buildings. A lot of these places have maintenance personnel, and some of them are good, some of them are bad. But there's people out there that they are on the front lines, that if they see something, they'll approach the board, and hopefully the board will do something about it, and things will get repaired on time. So for discussion, we're gonna discuss a few things. We're gonna discuss what occurred at Surfside, at least what I theorize what happened. I think I have enough information to make a good established theory, which a lot of the engineers that are out there they concur with. But again, we're not going to get to the actual answer with 100% certainty or near 100% certainty unless the folks that are working there, that are going through the rubble, that are doing actual modeling, that takes a lot of time until they come through and come back with their assessments. Next for discussion, we'll talk about the 3 biggest problems in a building. Buildings, much like the human body, you can get 1,000 things that go on in your body, as well as the same thing as with buildings. But I will talk about the 3 biggest problems that happen in a building, and those 3, they kick up 90% of the stuff that typically happens on a building. The next thing is, why do we have these problems? The next is, what can we do to avoid these problems? The next one, how can we protect ourselves? Excuse me. Then Andy's not here, so we're going to skip the insurance part. And then at the end, we're going to have a Q&A session. I'll talk a little bit about myself. My name is Greg Batista. Again, I'm a professional engineer, licensed in Florida, Texas, and Puerto Rico. I've been doing this for 30 years. I graduated in 91. So yeah, I'm giving my age away. I'm 53 years old. I worked at when I graduated from college, I went to work for a general contracting firm called Turner Construction. Turner Construction at that time was the largest building contractor in the world. And I actually built a few high rises with them. I mean, actually built. I wasn't doing engineering. I actually built these high rises as a general contractor. Did a couple of buildings in South Beach, a 40-story, and two buildings one building in Boca, another one in two actually on Fisher Island. So I'm an engineer that has a very established experience in construction, and you don't see too many of those around. And I've worked on engineer of record on many projects. I've served as expert witness because of my breadth of experience in both in engineering and construction on more than 100 cases. I'm president and founder of G. Batista Engineering and Construction, and we're 20 years in business. And I've also been on the Broward County Board of Unsafe Structures, and we've performed hundreds of 40-year recertifications. A lot of people didn't know what a 40-year recertification was until this Surfside thing happened. And now they do. This is an important thing that maybe we should talk about. Moving on. Andy, he is not going to be in this webinar, so I'm going to skip him. Sorry, Andy. Now we're going to talk about the Surfside collapse. The very next day after Surfside happened, I had to go to an engineers convention in Orlando. And I was at this engineers convention. The Miami Herald was talking to me. I had NBC and CNN calling me because when these kind of things happen, I don't know if you guys see me on the news, but I've been all over the place. But these people were calling me and giving me all these plans. They were giving me the original plans. And I was in this engineers convention, and I sat down with people that have been doing structural engineering for 20, 30, 40 years. And we looked at the plans, we studied them, and we came up with our own theory. And this is, mind you, this is like 2 or 3 days after this happened. So as I was being interviewed and stuff, I basically tell you guys right now what I've told Chris Cuomo and all those folks here. So let's start out with this video that shows, I'm sure you guys have seen it, of the security camera footage. As you can see, that there was something that happened on that first floor that gave away. So once the first floor gives away, it's like a domino effect. The rest of the building, that front part falls, the back part falls, and then the part that's on the side, a few seconds later, because there's an actual shear wall there holding that part up, that eventually succumbs and it falls down. Now let's go into a little bit of the, and I found a great 3D video that can show you. Hold on, I need to use my mouse here. Okay. Now the first thing that fell was this parking deck, and you can see it right there. It says the parking deck level. And there's these columns that are holding up, and there's hidden damage in that. That's one of the things that was on that report from the other engineer, Morabito, which in 2018, he did a report where the surface that you see is red had concrete damage. It had spalling in there. I actually visited the building, and I was hired to do some waterproofing details in 2017. I actually know the people that were there. I met with the board. I met with with one of the people on the board, and I didn't go into the garage. But if I would have went into the garage, I would have seen what the other guy has seen. But actually, they hired him after me to do the 40-year recertification. And once an engineer gets hired to do the 40-year recertification, they actually have to go through the entire building, which is what this gentleman did, Morabito. And this is the report that everybody's talking about, that he saw all these damages happening. So one of the things that happened as far as the damages that he saw was that that area that you see in red, that slab, it had concrete corrosion. And we're going to talk about concrete corrosion in a second. It's in the form of spalling. So what happened was is you have what's called, what we engineers called punching shear, which is basically this. You have a slab and you have a column that is holding up that slab. Now what happens when I press my hand up against my finger? There's a propensity for the slab to go, my finger to go through the slab, right? So if the tip of my finger is not glued, for lack of a better term, is not glued to my hand correctly and strongly, or if it's, you know, if it doesn't have any, if it's got degradation, there's a propensity for it to go through the slab. And because of the way it was designed, because of the way it was built, and because of the corrosion, a confluence of those three items made it so that, yes, so that this actually happened, this punch through, okay? So as you look at this animation, you'll see that the punch through failure happened in one of those columns. You see that little blue columns peeking up? And that happened on the other one, and it happened on the other one. And as the slab started to fail, you see it was going through, as the slab started to fall, you can see there that it's pushing, that's the first domino that fell, like I was talking about. And as that first domino falls, the rest of the building went ahead and fell also. So in my opinion, it wasn't just a concrete repair. It was because of the way it was built and designed. And I can do a whole other webinar, a 2-hour webinar just on this particular issue. So moving on, you can see where the columns are still standing. And when you look at the pictures, you'll see where the columns are still standing. You see those columns in the orange circles? You see the columns are sticking through just like my finger was through my hand. And through the phone calls, through the eyewitness accounts, this slab fell first. And one of the people, they actually saw it going down. They called around and they said that this is actually what they saw. So it's on record that was the first domino that tripped everything else. And you can see where at this corner, as you can see it turn, you can actually see a picture that shows the edge of the slab, and the pool is on the right side. Okay. This is just my theory. And I'm sure that you know that a lot of the engineers out there with what we know now will agree, and it's just to be confirmed yet again. Okay. So let's go down to the 3 biggest issues. Issue number 1, and I've been doing this for a very long time, and I've been through it in many buildings down here. Biggest issue number 1 is concrete structural degradation, the rusting and concrete spalling. Okay. Now, this is an actual building that I did. It was in Hollywood. I did this building maybe about 8 years ago. You can see where you have seaside structures, the rust will eat at anything that's made of steel. You can see that red pipe there that you see there, that's a fire sprinkler line. And you can see it's eating at it already. And sometimes it eats at it so much. Hold on. Technical difficulties. It eats at it so much that the hangers that these pipes are hanging from, they get rusted out and they fall to the ground. They fall on Mrs. Smith's Mercedes and forget it. Hell breaks loose. But most importantly is that the steel, there's steel reinforcing steel inside the concrete. And how can you see it? It's right there. It's called a spall. You see that? You see that black piece, that black line there? That's an actual piece of steel that rusts. And when a piece of steel rusts, it rusts and it expands up to 7 times its original volume. So imagine you have a piece of steel, it expands to 7 times its original volume. You're going to get that. The concrete's going to break. And once the concrete starts to break, the rebar continues to rust. It's going to cause eventual collapse. It's going to cause pieces of concrete to fall. And I'm going to tell you something. You see that? That's right there. Before that, that was what it looked like. before I took a hammer to it. And I put my team put a red dot on it. So you can see a crack there, right? But you take a hammer to it, and look how easy it falls apart. I just touched the thing, and some of it's just hanging by. You see it? You see that? I just took the hammer, the head of the hammer, and boom, it just fell. Those are pieces of concrete that this happens in 10 stories. These things can fall and kill somebody. I've been on 2 cases where the association has been sued because one of them was a piece of concrete. A guy was sitting on his balcony, and the piece of concrete like that fell on his head, and they were suing the association because the association, after years of notice, did not do anything to fix up the concrete. And the other one was where a piece of concrete in the garage hit a car, and nobody wanted to respond. But anyway, you see how easy the concrete falls apart. Now, people think that collapses are something that don't happen, that this is the first time that this has happened. Surfside, obviously, to this extent, yes, this is the first time. But this came out in the newspaper where entire balcony fell. Also, you have other places that have fell. This was in Lauderdale by the Sea. You had an entire catwalk just collapsed. Nobody got hurt, but still, if somebody would have been there, this is another one where a catwalk just fell. You can see the steel is bent and corroded. This is another one. So, I can do a 2-day seminar on how to repair these things, but I'll give you the 30-second rundown. If this thing happens, you see concrete repair that needs to happen, call an engineer. He needs to go out there and identify the issue. After he identifies the issue, then he classifies the problem. Maybe it's a spall, maybe it's not a spall, maybe it's a delamination, maybe it's an edge spall, full depth, partial depth. There's a whole science behind it. Once he classifies it, he documents it in some plans. Those plans then get submitted to the building department, and then they're approved for repairs. You get your permit, your contractor goes to town, and then obviously it gets repaired and everybody's happy. So about 10 years ago, because of, everybody asking, and how is this process and all these things, and everybody's confused, and it's natural because, people on boards, real estate agents, property managers, they're not engineers, they're not contractors. They want to know the real way how to do this. And these are not cheap repairs. They're expensive. There's a lot of money on the line. So I decided to write a book on it, and it's a 35-page book. It's called G. Batista's 1-Hour Guide to Concrete Repair, made especially for South Florida, which, if you guys have been around long enough, and you know that down here in South Florida, it's a very special place to do construction and engineering. So I made it specifically for those non-technical types that think they have an issue, how to go about the issue, and I've got a copy of it right here. You guys, if you guys send me an email, and I'll give you my information at the end, send me an email, I can send you a copy, an electronic copy for free. But, it's a very professionally made. It's got, it's in full color. There's checklists for you to look at. There's, and step by step. Step 4, putting a bid package together. It gives you a step by step, and everybody that's seen this book has just fallen in love with it because it's at least given them a foundation for them to know how to hire the right people and know more or less what to expect. Okay, moving on. The second biggest problem we have is moisture and water intrusion. Now, I'm sort of preaching to the choir here because you guys are investors and you guys know the drill. I mean, when I was an investor, it was the same thing over and over again. So I won't spend too much time on this. You guys should more than know that the causes is mold, wood rot, insects, spalling, and there's tile issues. I'll play the little video here because I know you've seen this 1,000 times. But I'm going to play it for you just to wake up your PTSD. There's another one, expansion joints give a lot of problems. And typically when you see this kind of thing, you guys know, you guys are in this business, okay? And the typical origins are roofs, expansion joints, windows, doors, louvers, vents, fenestrations, and through the paint. One thing I'd like to say is paint is not just to make something pretty. Paint is to protect your building. It's even more important to protect the building than to make it look pretty, because water gets into places and forget it. You're gonna have insect infestations, mold, even the spalling that I was just talking about, it just accelerates it. So definitely here, a stitch in time saves 900. And then the other biggest issues are obviously electrical issues, where you have outdated electrical installations, old and worn installation, and a lot of times you have unpermitted work where you see these crazy things. I was in a house the other day where it said, oh, here's the shower. And you look in the shower, it's made of wood paneling. And when you looked up, it had a ceiling fan inside the shower. It was wood paneling and a ceiling shower. And they actually counted it as a bathroom.
It's okay if it's waterproof, right? As long as it's an outdoor shower fan.
No, it was the wood, you know, the thin wood paneling.
Yeah, the Glacier Bay cheapies. Yeah, that's horrible. No,
of course, you can have wood.
If somebody actually wanted that, I would suggest an outdoor ceiling fan.
But it's not. It does not allowed by the NEC. But anyway, that's a whole other story.
That's correct.
Okay, then we've got electrical issues. Okay, why do we have these problems? Answer number one: lack of maintenance. That is by far the biggest. I've seen hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of condos and properties, and a lot of people. You have, it's paint, it's corrosion, electrical, plumbing, and you also have the personnel, like I said, that they might have the best intentions at heart, but sometimes things don't get fixed, and they don't get fixed because, mainly it's because of ignorance, lack of money, indifference. But there's many reasons why, and I've whenever I show up to a building and tell them, look, you have to repair your building, you have to spend $1 million, forget it. Hell breaks loose. I've gotten fired off of so many buildings because I've spoken pretty much I just say the truth, and whatever happens, happens. And sometimes people don't want to hear the truth, and as long as I say the truth, it's fine. But it just doesn't happen to me. Everybody that's in my same line of work, it's the same thing. Whenever I show up to a board meeting, it's not because you're bringing good news. It's because you're bringing bad news. Okay, next. Why do we have these problems? Is, well, when things are done, they're done wrongly. A lot of times I've seen places where they want to do repairs. They don't have the money to fix it, to do plans, to pay an engineer, to go through the permitting process and pay a contractor that's licensed, insured, bonded. It's going to cost you twice what it's going to cost you to hire the Hialeah special to fix it up cheaply. So, when no permits are pulled, what happens? No permits are pulled. It might be done wrong. And if it's not done wrong and according to code, there is typically a safety matter, because at the end of the day, the codes are there for our safety. A lot of people can say, hey, it's a pain in the ass to go by the code. Yes, but again, it's difficult. Why? Because it's a safety issue. And most importantly, you have to hire the right professionals, whether it's a contractor, whether it's an engineer, whether it's an architect, whether it's an attorney. That's just the way it is. And sometimes people don't want to spend the right money. And I can sit here and talk about what happened at Surfside and the events that transpired, and come up with a bunch of scenarios whereby people were either kicking the can down the road, or whether they just were apathetic, or whether they wanted to do it and they didn't have the money because the construction cost was going to be in the several $1 million. We can sit here and talk about all these things, but at the end of the day, things should be done correctly. You should pull permits, and most importantly, you hire the right professionals. And guess what I have for you? I have more books. I wrote these books maybe about 3 or 4 years ago, and I'm giving them away for free. If you're going to hire an engineer, you should know that there is a certain way to hire an engineer. This book spells it out step by step, how to do an RFP, how to send, how to send it out, how to compare your different proposals, apples to apples. And then you can choose, you have the best way of choosing the right engineer, and hiring an owner's representative. For those of you who don't know, an owner's representative is basically a person who represents the owner. And because most owners don't know how to, don't know the ins and outs of engineering, ins and outs of construction. And if it's a large project, and I'm talking about maybe a couple $1 million, $3, $4, $5 million projects, they should hire somebody, because there's a lot of money on the table, and the boards have the fiduciary duty of protecting the money of their clients. And although you're spending money with an owner's representative, it comes back. It's an investment that is well made. So again, you can get the book, the hiring an owner's representative. And one of the first things that's there is, do you actually need one? And it goes through a whole checklist and a quiz that, if you get above a certain percentage or above certain points, it says, yes, you should hire one. Again, that's for free on my website. I don't know if it's up yet after the webinar, but if you go back tomorrow, day after tomorrow, it should already be up. So how can we avoid these problems? First and foremost, don't panic. Please understand that there's many things in place to ensure construction goes along well. When you want to do a construction, you have to hire an architect, you have to hire an engineer. Okay, above that, you have the people at the building department, the building officials, the people that review the plans before you get a permit. Once you get that, you have the general contractor that's doing the work. He has his eyes and ears. The contractor has his own inspectors. Then there's the city inspectors checking the work. Then you have your special inspectors, and you have your threshold inspectors. So there's so many layers that there's no reason why that a mishap like what happened in Surfside happened. And again, I really look forward to the time when all the cards are on the table, we find out what happened, so that we will not let a tragedy like this happen again. Next is, when buying, hire the right professionals. If you're looking to buy a condo, it's the same thing. You hire the right professionals. You hire, Alex Johnson or one of the folks here to let you know that, there are 40-year certifications out there. You do need, maybe you need to see your reserve study. Otherwise, who would know about a reserve study to see if there's actual money in there to make the repairs? If there's a home inspectors, who's a good home inspectors? That's a whole other webinar that can be made just on that subject. And as I was talking about reserve studies, all of you know what a reserve study is, but I think that's a very important tool. When I go to buy a condo, I want to see the reserve study to see if I'm going to get hit with assessments and whatever. And I know the state of the building. So I don't need to spend time on that. And of course, you avoid these problems by having inspections. And as you guys already know, there's a bunch of inspections that happen on buildings. There's fire inspections, city inspections, the elevators. There's a placard on every elevator that says, this was inspected by John Smith on such a date. And there's mechanical inspections, roofing inspections. And if you have a good property manager on board, then that person knows the drill. And that person comes with that expertise on being able to hire the right professionals, and making sure that the checkbook is in order, that everybody's getting paid, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. 40-year recertifications. I suppose everybody here already knows what a 40-year recertification is. And but if you don't, then have I got a book for you. It's called G. Batista's 1 Hour Guide to 40-Year Recertifications. Again, it's got, it's in full color. It's got checklists, what to do, what to avoid. There's a lot of people out there who just want to fleece, hey, we got a 40-year certification, and they think there's a blank check to get everything done on your building. No, that's not it. I give a lot of good advice here on these in this book. So a lot of people have downloaded these, and I get so many reviews and so much feedback from people saying that this is the best thing that they've seen. There's nothing like these books in the market. So let's move on. Hiring the right professional, protecting with the insurance. Andy is not here, so we're going to go ahead and skip that. And now we're going to go with the Q&A. Anybody wants to ask a question, just unmute yourself and ask.
Hi, I'm Lynn. And first, I'd like to say thank you for all the information. And, just a great way that you present it, but also advocate, for people to be interested and where to get information. So that part of it is great. So I'm a lender. Now, lenders, when we loan money on condos, we do a tremendous amount of investigation about the condominium association. Mostly the investigation we do has to do with finances and litigation and things that are important. However, and I always encourage my buyers to get their home inspection of their unit. But what kind of questions or what ways should I begin to educate buyers of condos? What questions to ask about the condition of the building? Because that really is not something that is addressed through mortgage lending.
Yes, that's an excellent question. Short of asking them to get a home inspector, right? Like everybody's used to doing, right? If your building's more than 40 years old, you should have your people ask for the 40-year recertification. And I've had clients, I've told them, look, you get the 40-year recertification. It's public record. If they don't want to give it to you, then you go to the building department. They have a record of it over there. Every city's different. Some are more of a pain in the butt to get it than others, but still, it's a public record, and they should be able to attain a copy of it. That in of itself it's called, basically the 40-year recertification is really called the 40-year recertification, electrical and structural for life safety. The 40-year recertification is clued into doing those things, looking at those things that are basically a life safety, which is typically it's electrical and structural. It doesn't go into plumbing. It doesn't go into mechanical. Nobody's ever died of a leak falling on their head. Nobody's ever died because air conditioner fell apart. It's basically structural and electrical, things that have to do with life safety. So if you are the lender, you'll know how old this building is. And the first thing you tell them is, if it's more than 40 years old, you have to get a copy of it, because it's very telling. You have professional that the Florida law requires that has to be signed and sealed by an engineer or an architect, signed and sealed. That means that there's an actual professional behind that report. And if there's anything that was damaged or anything that's wrong with it, it will be on that report. And we've done hundreds of these. Now, if the building is less than 40 years old, then that's a problem. You won't have that 40-year recertification. And let me say something, that if the building is 52 years old, then yeah, there should be a 50-year report, because you have to get a 40-year recertification at 40 years and every 10 years thereafter. But there's nothing in there. And that's one of the things that has come about because of the Surfside, because the building just turned 40 and they were in the middle of getting the 40-year recertification. They were in the middle of getting the 40-year recertification. So imagine, from what I see in the pictures and from seeing the pictures of the sister building that's practically next door, I was there at the site the next day. You get I noticed that there was a lack of maintenance. You can tell, I've been doing this for 30 years. You can tell when a building has some TLC, tender loving care to it. And you can tell when a building has been abandoned and that people don't care about painting it and whatever. So you're at the 40-year mark. If you don't have 40 years, then you got to get an inspector out there. You can get somebody like me if you're concerned about the structure. We don't do home inspections, but there are a lot of good home inspectors out there, competent people. And I know a few. I'm sure you guys know a few that are in the club. That's the best advice I can give you.
So just to be sure, so what you're saying is that a buyer could hire a home inspector or some kind of inspector that can kind of do a review of the systems that have to do with life and safety of the building, not only of the particular unit that they're buying, that they could do an inspection of the building to give somebody a comfort that, okay, yeah, the building is pretty good, looks pretty good, or I don't know, however they would say it. But I can imagine that that's going to be on a lot of people's minds going forward.
Yeah, I've been hired ever since Surfside. I've been hired to do so many structural inspections that have nothing to do with the 40-year certification. 40-year certifications are only required in Dade and Broward County, but I've got people from Palm Beach, Pensacola, Tampa calling me to get structural inspections that are similar to the 40-year certification. We're giving out proposals left and right. So the people that are not required to do the 40-year, but they're taking the initiative, through their board members and through the residents' concerns to get these inspections done. So yeah, if you're going to buy a building and it doesn't have the 40-year certification, you as the buyer have the right to have the building inspected, as well as your specific apartment, and hiring the right professionals. First of all, hiring the best, real estate agent. Because a real estate agent, I would hire somebody that specializes in condos and that knows people, that probably the inspector has already inspected that building. That's why good real estate agents, experienced ones, are so invaluable.
That's great. Thank you very much for that information.
Any other questions?
Greg, hi, it's Suzanne. Thank you so much for the information. It was really great. It was really, really good. Thank you. And hopefully I have my facts right. I believe that someone in Surfside, maybe it was last year, bought an apartment at the top of the building for like $2.9 million. Was there no obligation to explain the difficult? This thing was going on for like 3 years, they said, and as far as the damage and understanding it and trying to get it fixed and so on, and having engineers come in and look at it. No obligation to tell a buyer that this is going on?
I think Alex had a better answer to this, but I know that when you buy a condo, that there are stipulations in the contract that says that if you know that there's going to be assessments or
Assessments.
that you should, because I know that this repair thing has been going on for 3 or 4 years. So if they bought this, if they would have, asked the right questions or had the right contract, that somehow it would have come to light. So I'm not an attorney. Maybe Alex or one of the attorneys can speak to that.
Suzanne, in the standard FAR-BAR contract, there is a provision that states that the seller at least must disclose any defects that they know about that are not readily observable. So I would think that if they got an engineer's report 3 years ago stating that there's serious structural damage to the deck and that's not visible, as Greg showed, that when you saw that spalling, it just looked like a little blister, but once you hit it with a hammer, the whole cement falls to pieces and you see that the rebar is corroding. So yeah, I agree that should have been disclosed if they knew about it.
Yeah, and I can't imagine spending $2.9 million after hearing that. And just lastly, Greg, I think 40 years between inspections is an awfully long time. I'm not an engineer, but it seems like a long time. Do you think that'll change?
I don't know. I just had a conversation yesterday with Mayor Geller, and he's putting together a task force to look into different people, contractors, engineers, property managers, residents, board members, attorneys, and whatnot, to get together, put our heads together to see if we can come up with something that is feasible and acceptable to everybody. Because right now, if you ask me, I think that 40 years is okay. But having seen how fast the building can deteriorate in 40 years, if there was no, if there was, it almost seems that there was no tender loving care given to this building. I've seen buildings that are twice that age that are in excellent condition. So it takes a lot. It takes a lot to happen, and I think that this confluence of issues that happen is like the planets aligning, because it's extremely rare to have something like this happen. So it's gotta. I know that the mayor Levine Cava, she's coming up with it. I've been talking with the Miami Herald. They've constantly been quoting me. I've been on the phone with them for quite often. They're thinking of doing like a town hall kind of meeting where people can ask questions and have sort of more or less the same kind of banter that we are having. because that helps to get the things out. So there are people out there, there are people talking, and hopefully the product of all those conversations will end up with some sort of rules changing or something. Right now, I have no idea what that's going to be.
Sure. Well, thank you. Appreciate it.
Greg, hi. First of all, thank you so much for the information. The pictures that you showed a little while ago about the exposed rebar, we had a situation like that about a year ago in a small condo where I own a couple units. And what they did was they treated the rebar with this thing called rust destroyer, and it was kind of painted, repaint the rebar. So I just wanted to get your opinion on whether that was
He just destroyed the rebar.
What your opinion on whether that was a way to go about it or not.
There's a funny story. I was doing about 10 years ago. I was hired to be the engineer for a 400 unit condo, 400 units. And we're talking about $15 million concrete repair job. There was a company out there called SureTreat, and I'll say the name freely. They're not in business anymore, obviously, because they pretended to have this chemical that seeps into the concrete. You didn't have to break the concrete out. It coats the steel that's been rusted, okay? The rusted steel, it coats it, this fairy dust or whatever the hell you want to call it, and your problem goes away.
Oh my.
I had to almost beg because the cost for them to do the repairs was less than half of the lowest bidder that we got to do the concrete repair, the way it's supposed to be done. It's like cancer. You're supposed to cut out the cancer, get rid of it, get rid of the rust, and put new steel in, or clean the steel to its original luster, right? That is expensive. So, I wanted to talk to the president of the company, but the guy was missing in action. You would go to the website, it didn't give an address, didn't give a number. It's funny because I went to the Broward County, they have like this homeowners association fairs where they have thousands of vendors. I had my booth, and guess who was right in front of me? I'm not talking about front to the side, but right across the hall from me. The folks at SureTreat. So I said, is the president showing up? Oh yeah, he'll be here in a minute. I let that man have it, and I told him that I was this far from going to the Better Business Bureau and to the state, telling them that he's basically lying to people. There's no way that you have this fairy dust that you sprinkle on rusted rebar that is gonna get rid of it. You're throwing your money out the window. So if anybody comes up to you and says, hey, I've got this thing that you cut out the rebar, for example, like what you saw under the sled of the stair in the video, that's what you're talking about, right?
Yes.
Anybody telling you that they're gonna sprinkle their fairy dust on there, or their Rust-Oleum, or whatever you call it, and that it's gonna go away, flat out, they're lying to you. Okay, you got to do it the right way. If you go into the ICRI, you can look it up on Google. ICRI is the International Concrete Repair Institute. They are the people who do the codes for concrete repair, which I just happened to be on for a couple of years on their technical committee coming up with these codes. So, I'm not talking from somebody who's seen it from afar. I've been right in the middle of it, helping out making these codes and actually doing the work from the engineer and as a contractor. So feel free, and you call me, because I hate when these people are hawking these things and telling you that it's going to get rid of your concrete repair problem, because it's flat out false.
Yeah, Greg, you're with a GC. I was actually the guy on the ground doing the work. So I know what it's like to take an 8-inch grinder and cut it up underneath a slab and literally cut from the edge of a platform all the way to the wall, cut out the bad rebar, drill 3/4-inch holes in, put your epoxy inside the hole, put in brand new rebar, resilt it with brand new Portland cement. It's a hard job, and people don't realize that when they're spending $1 million, I mean, personally, I would probably charge upwards to $2,000 per strip that I would put in, because it's a lot of work. It takes hours to replace each piece of rebar, and it has to be done properly. And you're right, it all has to be tied in together. And You have to have, you got to make sure it's a number 3 rebar in condo, number 5 for small residential, but it's got to be the right stuff that you use. I've seen people put number 8 rebar in a slab foundation, and I'm like, are you an idiot? You're never going to pass the inspector. And sure enough, the inspector comes out and goes, what is this? This isn't number 5 rebar. It requires number 5 rebar tied together at 16 inches on the center. It has to be around the corner, 16 inches tied onto other rebar. You have to have at least 3 ties. You guys have 1 tie. You got number 8 rebar. Get out of here. Call me when it's done right. And they walk away. So, yeah, you're just going to waste money with the wrong guy if you don't hire the right guy to do the job.
It's dangerous work. Imagine doing that 30 stories up on a condo.
And do you know what I mean? It's tough, man. Cutting out concrete and rebar is not an easy job.
Greg, first of all, thank you so much for the brilliance that you've shared with us today. You promised us your email address. That's number 1. So let's first do that.
Okay, it's Greg Batista. I'll give you my personal one. It's Greg Batista PE at Gmail. It's Greg, Greg, Batista, Batista, P as in professional, E as in.
It's at Gmail. Could you put that in the chat for us? So I can just copy it out of there and be so much easier. Thanks.
I can do that in a moment for you, David. I know how techie you are. So the other question that I wanted to ask, when you said something about the steel, when it gets rusted, expands to 7 times its original size. Now, I'm really not an investor at this point that's gotten involved with any construction, but I didn't know steel could rust. That's the first thing that's got me. I guess I'm so used to thinking of stainless steel. So obviously there's other grades of steel. So we're not talking about stainless steel in the buildings. We're talking about a different quality of steel. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes, rebar reinforcing steel is made of just regular steel. There's different grades of steel, but this is just between us right here. It's just regular steel. If you leave it out on the ocean, it's gonna rust. I mean, even if you leave it anywhere, it's a natural interaction with the chemicals in the air that with oxygen it's just regular rust.
Okay, well, makes.
I'm sorry.
No, I was going to say that now that you've explained it that way, it makes sense, because I'm just thinking of stainless steel, and that is obviously made differently so it doesn't rust. Yeah. Okay. Got it. Wow.
So it does expand. It does expand a lot. And I'm sure that you've seen cars, like old cars, where you see the paint bubbles. And if you hit that thing with a bubble, if you hit that bubble, it's going to be pieces of rust falling all over the place. Mm-hmm. So it's the same concept. It just expands.
Wow. Wow.
Hey, Greg, when you see a property with a tiled floor the tiles have a lot of cracks, could that be from water intrusion, or is that because the foundation is settling?
Having done a bunch of cases about broken tile, water certainly doesn't help, because water can weaken the thin set that's holding down the tile to the floor. It doesn't help. The day and night doesn't help, because properties expand and they contract. I'm sure you've heard of tiles that we call it tenting, where you have your tiles, all of a sudden they pop, and you actually hear it. It happened to my parents one day. I heard an explosion. It came out, all my tiles were popping. Well, really buildings expand and contract, and that thin set that's there, you think it's just there, just hey, chilling out. No, those things are just they're undergoing pressures as the buildings expand and contract, and they say, okay, I'm out of here, and they pop. You've got bad installation. Some people, they mix too much water in the thin set because they want the thin set to be more, and it's bad thin set. It comes undone. Even the thin set, maybe some guys they don't use thin set. Maybe they use Sure-Treat or something. I don't know. So there's lots of things that come into play. People put tile on top of wood. Wood moves a lot. They put on, that wood floor, is probably on 2x4s or 2x6s, and that stuff obviously moves. I can sit here and I can go on and on and on, but you could talk about cracked tiles. But water certainly doesn't help, and that goes back to the same thing I was talking about earlier about water and moisture intrusion.
Okay, so you brought up another point. As investors who are doing remodeling, If they come into a house and they have the opportunity to change flooring, depending upon what they find and where they're going, based on what you shared about tiles cracking, popping, thin set, all this stuff, if it was your house, what would you put on the floor?
Well, it depends on what it is. It depends on what it is. I just purchased a house in Miami Shores where the second floor, the elevated, the second floor was wood. And my girlfriend, she wanted to put, hey, let's put some tile on there, some nice marble. I said, there's no way I'm putting marble up there. As much as I love marble, which we put on the first floor, we're either putting carpet or VCT. VCT is the vinyl tile, and there's some really nice vinyl tiles out there. So it depends. First, to me, it depends on what it is. You know, what you have a budget for. You know, in the old Joe Bowman days, he used to have, just put carpet. Carpet's cheap. So,
Yep, I've heard that before. I understand. Thank you very much.
you're welcome. David, you had a question.
Yeah, as a mortgage lender and as an investor, and you did say you were a realtor and an investor, correct?
Yes.
So for me at this point, listening to you and seeing what I've seen over the last however many months it's been since that building dropped, I'm really hesitant about going into any place at this point with what I've seen. And being an ex-restaurant guy, you know, every year we used to have these horrible things called inspections where they would come in and inspect the properties to make sure that we were doing what we were supposed to be doing. Sounds to me like your job ahead of you with all these groups that are creating this stuff is that, you know, there are so many buildings down there that are in such bad shape. This is very scary to me.
No, and the thing is that it's funny that you say that, because I've been in buildings where I've inspected, and there was one building particularly in Miami Beach. It was a hotel. It was an old hotel. And when you do a 40-year certification, you know, you have to put your Tyvek on and go into a crawl space where I've seen rats, raccoons, snakes, frogs, crap, everything. But you have to do it as part of your job. I went in this crawl space, which nobody's been in there for 50, 60 years. This was a turn of the century building. I saw the main beam that was holding the building up. We're talking about a beam that was about 30 inches wide and about 5 feet tall. That is a huge beam, and this is a multi-story hotel. I went in there and it had such a huge crack that I could see daylight on the other side. I got out of there. I took a picture of it and I got out of there. I went and I told the general manager, if you don't hire somebody today to put shoring on this entire beam, I'm going to go to the building department and they're going to get rid of all of you people, like now. So I showed him the picture. He actually freaked out, which he should have. So what happened was they hired somebody to have this thing shored up, and they had it repaired within a week. But the thing is that these are the kind of things that happen. Those collapses that I've seen. I can tell you stories of jobs that I've been on where there've been collapses. You know, floors just collapsing, and the older the building is, the more propensity it has. All the collapses that I've seen has been all on the ocean, and they've all been in the older parts of town. Lauderdale by the sea, Fort Lauderdale, Miami Beach, North Miami Beach. So yeah.
It's funny you said that, because I was a kosher caterer literally on Miami Beach the first 20 years I lived in Florida. So I've been in all those hotels, and it's really, really scary when you go into the places that not too many people go.
Yeah, no, you know what I'm talking about. You see entire pieces of wall down, and it's scary. And the thing is that I've been preaching this gospel. This what I'm telling you. I've been saying this for years, right? And now is when people are starting to take this thing seriously. And I'm hiring people and getting a bunch of contracts, but it shouldn't have to be this way. You know, that you're saying these things, and David, I'm sure that, you know, you as part of your real estate, you see something, you're like, oh my God, you know, but the owners, until something like this happens, they're not going to gain that you know, that thing that says, oh my God, we really need to do something about it. Start listening to their professionals.
And I think the worst part is that most of these people that we think are professionals that are giving advice to these buyers, they know just a little bit more than the buyers know. There's very, very few people that have the knowledge that you have. And in doing that, and I'm saying that because I've bought properties and I feel like I don't know anything when I listen to you talk. And it's really scary about, look, I mean, I'm thinking all the condos, I've done deals for my clients. I got to go call them and tell them to call you.
Well, first of all, thank you. But I don't, look, having been a licensed realtor, owning my own real estate company, being a GRI and all that stuff, I can tell you that I don't expect real estate agents to have my level of knowledge. But what I do fully expect, is that they know enough to be able to guide their client in the right way.
Right.
If they see the crack, they say, "Oh my God, that's a crack," or you should have a 40-year certification. I don't do them, but your building's 50 years old. You should get this. And I mean, that's what they're licensed for. That's why they have this experience. That's why you should hire the right professionals.
Well, if I was you, I'd go find a shitload of engineers, because if it's anything like the mortgage business, when they slapped our hands, they slapped them really hard. And I think that you're going to need a lot of guys working for you to keep up with what's coming.
Yeah. I'm even before Surfside, I was looking for people. So now I've forget it. Taking out my Rolodex and calling old colleagues and stuff. But yes, you're right. And it's a good thing. It's a good thing, because at the end of the day, it's not necessarily about my pocketbook or your pocketbook. It's about safety, because this kind of crap, a building collapsing, I can't even believe I'm saying that. A building collapsing in the United States, in Florida, in Surfside, for God's sake. I still can't, to me, it's unbelievable I'm saying those words, but yeah, it's gotta happen.
Well, I was born and raised here, and I'm an old tomato, so I've been in a lot of old buildings, and I used to work in the hotel business. And I'll bet you dollars to donuts, one of those hotels you're referring to with that cracked beam was probably down in South Beach, because some of those hotels are super old. I remember it well when I would be walking, on that neighborhood. But what I was curious about, well, like getting back to your books, first of all, thank you for being such a prolific writer. And you did say that if we sent you our email, there's something you would email us, but the rest we need to go to your website and download. Is that what I'm understanding?
Oh, I was selling the 4 books for $200, but I told my marketing guy, look, just put them up for free, and but I don't know if he's done that yet.
Okay, the reason I ask is I am part of a nationwide group of real estate investors, and I have so many people in my mind that I would like to send to your website, to send out your ebook, to let them know, because look, I've studied real estate for years. I don't own any property yet. I'm prognosticating that this is my year. But I can just see that there is so much knowledge that we don't have. Because I always say, and people on this group have heard me say it, you don't know what you don't know. And you are the perfect personification of how little we know about your area of expertise. And if I can help any of the people in my nationwide community save a situation, a life, a building, an investment, oh my God, when I think of the insurance issue that building is going to face with what has transpired, showing their lack of attention and their ignorance of what they could have done a couple of years ago. I mean, the loss of life, the money, I can't, it's mind-boggling to me. I cannot even, my heart goes out to everybody involved with that situation, but you are a blessing to be able to provide real information, tangible information that somebody that's involved in any way, shape, or form in real estate can actually take advantage of. So I'm excited that today was the day that you showed up with all this brilliance, because I'm going to send it to lots of people.
Oh, great. Thank you for saying that. I'm going to say something else, something that you guys should definitely take advantage of. The Andy Fuchsa, the guy who was talking about the insurance, he's one of the top attorneys in insurance claims, and he's done hundreds or thousands of insurance claims. This guy, he graduated from construction management a long time ago, and he went to work for a construction company. He had his own construction company. After that, he owned one of the largest public adjusting firms in Florida. Okay. After that, he was saying, Greg, because I've known him for years. He said, Greg, when we do these claims, the only people that are making the real money are the attorneys. They don't do anything. They just sit back and collect the money. I said, why don't you become an attorney? He went to Nova and he graduated from being an attorney. So now he has his own lawyer. He's got his own attorney firm, Geyer Fruits of Tyler. So this is a guy who, like me, I've been doing a lot of things. He's unique in that he was a contractor. He was a public adjuster, and now he's an attorney. He knows the insurance stuff inside out, and he did such a great presentation on how to protect yourself with the right insurances and the clauses and the exclusions, and it just made my head turn. But people are saying, Greg, you did a good job, but they loved his presentation because it actually, he called it how to avert a disaster after the disaster. Whether it was just a collapse of your building or whatever. So if you guys send me the email, I'll send you the YouTube link to the entire presentation. Just scroll through my first 40 minutes. And when you see somebody else talking, that will be his presentation. Any other questions?
Hi, I have a question. Hi, I'm a beginner investor and looking for houses, bad houses too. But I'm just wondering with regards to the Surfside, how could they even supposedly prevented that happening to save the lives of those people and that building?
That is such a complicated question. I think it starts with finding out what happened. I gave you guys my theory of what I think happened. And it happened because of three things. It happened because of corrosion. It happened because of the how the building was built, how it was designed. So those three things came together, and the planets just lined up the right way, and this is what happened. And there may be other issues. There may be something else. I got a call from a lady saying, "No, I know what happened there. There was a guy who had a meth lab on the first floor, and that thing exploded." And I told the lady, "You've been watching too much Breaking Bad, lady. I don't know." But anyway, but right now we the bottom line is that we need to find out what the cause was and find out 100%, and then we can go by and we can say, okay, this is why it happened, and this is what we need to do for it not to happen again.
Thank you.
Okay, no questions? I think we're done.
Thank you.
All right, thanks everybody.
Can you hire
great.
a structural engineer from the Philippines? My son is a structural engineer.
Oh, good. Well, he's got a great profession, and it's one that's very rewarding. You actually, I really do. I love to help people. If you go to my website, you'll see that I have these books and I have these videos, and it's just that's the way I am, and hopefully that your son, as smart as he is, he'll be able to do the same thing, because that's what we do. We solve problems. But God bless you. God bless everybody.
Thank you, Greg.
Thank you, Greg.
Thank you.
Thank you, Greg. That was awesome.
Alex, thank you for finding Greg so that we could have this brilliant opportunity to get educated about something I have no clue about. OMG. Oh my goodness.
You guys with money, I got 2 properties that I'll sell quickly today if you got cash.
2 condos, I'm sure.
Yep.
Greg is trying to tell you something and he's on mute.
I thought the first floor was good, and I thought the top floor was good.